On July 30, 2008, a Greyhound bus was speeding east. In the afterglow of the setting sun on Canada's long east-west highway, 22-year-old Tim McLean lazily leaned against the car window, with music playing in his headphones. Just finished his work at the Edmonton Carnival and rushed back home to Winnipeg with anticipation. He declined his friend's offer to buy a plane ticket, smiling and saying that the Greyhound bus was cheap and could see the scenery all the way. At this moment, no one knew that the man sitting next to him was being entangled in a lingering voice in his heart. This man's name is Li Weiguang, born in Dandong, Liaoning Province in 1968, and was a top student majoring in computer science at Wuhan University of Science and Technology, and immigrated to Canada in 1996. However, the reality was cruel, and he could only work in Winnipeg delivering newspapers and cleaning up garbage. Beginning in 2005, he developed serious mental problems, claiming to have heard God's voice saying that aliens disguised as humans were going to destroy the world and ordered him to save the earth. On July 24, 2008, he disappeared after leaving a note to his ex-wife saying "Don't look for me," hiding a newly bought hunting knife in his bag. At 6:55 p.m. on July 30th, bus No. 1170 stopped at Ericksontown, and Li Weiguang got on the bus again. He slowly walked to the back row and stopped in front of the empty seat next to Tim. Tim took off one of his headphones, smiled friendly, put them back on and closed his eyes to rest. The car was dimly lit, and the movie Zorro's Mask was playing. Stephen Allison, a college student sitting across the aisle, later testified, "I noticed that something was wrong with the man. He was holding a 2-liter bottle of iced tea and a large roll of toilet paper, his fingers nervously tapping his knees, and his mouth was slurred." At around 7 p.m., halfway through the movie, Stephen suddenly saw Li Weiguang quickly pull out a 12-centimeter long hunting knife from his bag. He seemed to be activated by an invisible switch, turned sharply to Tim, and stabbed him into the neck with a hard blow. Tim's headphones fell to the ground, making a screeching electric sound, and he struggled to look up, his eyes widening in horror. But he couldn't make a sound. He kept stabbing him, probably 50 or 60 times, Stephen recalled, and there was no hope at all. Stephen shouted to stop, and the carriage instantly fried. Passengers screamed and rushed to the door. Some stepped on their shoes, and some knocked over the luggage rack. Kelly Shaw, who was sitting in the middle, said, "I can hear the terrifying sound of hee-hee coming out of Tim's throat, like a leaking balloon, and blood splattering on the car window." The bus driver stopped in a hurry, slammed the door open, and shouted, "Get off. Go down." He and 2 male passengers wanted to rush back to save people, but were violently blocked in the aisle by Li Weiguang, swinging his knife frantically and expressionless on his face. After everyone fled to the side of the road, Stephen couldn't help but turn around. Tim was lying motionless in the aisle, and Li Weiguang was bending down and holding something high in his hand. "It's the head." He cut off Tim's head. Roadside passengers crowded in a frightened herd, and some squatted in the grass and vomited violently. Truck driver Chris Alger picked up a crowbar and wanted to rush over, but he didn't dare to move when he learned that the murderer had a knife. He and the driver climbed the steps next to the driver's seat and looked through the car window. Li Weiguang took Tim's head and walked back and forth in the car as if no one was there, walked to the front door and pressed his face against the glass, looking at the crowd outside. His eyes were empty, no anger, no fear, nothing. At 8:30 p.m., the RCMP arrived at the scene, and the police car was parked a few hundred meters away, and no one dared to approach. Li Weiguang had already locked the car door and continued to cut the body. A police officer observed with a binocular, and later wrote in the report, "The suspect put parts of the dismembered body into plastic bags, or put them in his mouth to chew." Passengers were placed next to a police car in the distance to take notes, and Stephen curled up in a blanket, his teeth trembling. The tense standoff lasted for 5 hours, and the negotiators repeatedly shouted with loudspeakers, but there was no response. Only once, someone vaguely heard Li Weiguang shouting, "I must stay in the car forever." After Li Weiguang was taken to the police station, he only said one sentence, "Please kill me." Psychiatrist Stanley assessed him 19 times, and he told the whole story intermittently. That day on the bus, a voice suddenly commanded, "It's him. The young man next to him is disguised as an alien and will kill everyone." God said that the resurrection could be prevented only by completely destroying him, cut off the head for fear of coming back to life, and eat the eyes because God said that you can see hidden aliens that way. In March 2009, the court ruled that Li Weiguang was not criminally responsible for murder due to mental disorders and was sent to a mental health center for compulsory treatment. Tim's mother, Carol, cried outside the courtroom, "Kill my son and eat his body," just because he heard the sound. The lives of those passengers who experienced the tragedy were changed forever. Stephen was originally an honor student, but later he had difficulty concentrating on even a class, did not dare to take the bus, did not dare to talk to strangers, and felt chills when he saw a man wearing sunglasses. Kelly was often awakened by nightmares, and never heard the theme song of Zorro's Mask again. "I felt sick and wanted to vomit when I heard it." Chris quit his long-distance transportation job and became a warehouse manager. "That picture is like a hot soldering iron engraved in my mind, and I can never erase it." In May 2015, Li Weiguang was quietly released. In 2017, he changed his name to Will Rebeck and was granted complete freedom. Tim's family fell into pain again, and Carol said, "He is free, but my Tim's life is forever fixed at the age of 22. Bus 170 has long been destroyed." But that story has become a heavy case in Canadian judicial history. Tim's tombstone reads, "He lit up every corner with his hearty laughter." After Li Weiguang changed his name and surname, he completely disappeared into the vast sea of people. The tragedy exposed a fatal flaw in the mental health system. A person who has repeatedly shown serious illnesses can move freely without supervision, ultimately costing innocent people their lives. When the law chooses cure rather than punishment, who will pay for broken families and psychological wounds that can never heal?